How many people would say, I know what scar tissue is? Go ahead and put your hands in the air. I know what scar tissue is. Put your hand down if it's because you read a textbook. All right, so the rest of us know what scar tissue is because we have experienced it. Is that true? Is that right? Yeah. These are the people who actually understand scar tissue. If you don't know it by definition, scar tissue essentially is biologically, it is your body's attempt at a quick fix after some kind of injury. Scar tissue is in the body, inside the body. It's thick. It's a fibrous tissue that forms and grows around the site of a wound. Maybe it was an accidental wound, like an injury that you've had. It could be an intentional wound because there's some surgery and the wound is closed up. Scar tissue tends to form around this area. I was doing some learning, and I called a friend of mine, longtime friend who's been a podiatrist for Doctor of Podiatry for a few years, like a few decades, excuse me. And I literally said, hey, teach me about scar tissue. And she said, scar tissue? Oh, scar tissue is the enemy. And I said, oh, well, that's how we start. She says scar tissue is the enemy because it restricts blood flow to the site. It limits mobility. And the irony is that this is the body trying to take care of itself. However, here's the irony really, is that the body has an instinct to protect itself so that it doesn't go back to where it was. This is why scar tissue is what it is. And one of the things it's trying to protect is continued future use of the joint or the body part. So the irony there is that even though the body is trying to heal itself, it can also block future healing as well. I'll give you an example. I used to roll my ankles all the time. And most of it was being young and dumb. I'd turn my ankle, and I wouldn't wait long enough before I would get back into playing or things like that. And I'd just injure it again, or I'd injure it again. I'd favor it, and then I'd injure the other one. It's just being a dummy. And as the years go on, some of those injuries just kind of persisted. And so now, I can still roll my ankle, basketball, volleyball, walking on uneven pavement, sitting, like the more time goes on. And you may be like me, that when you were young, you did not rehab the injury properly. And so today, maybe it looks fine on the surface, but underneath, there's issues, right? There's a limited range of mobility. Can't do what you used to do with it. There could be some pain, specifically in that area, specifically for those reasons, especially when you try to get back out there and pretend like you're 25 again. And this is the nature of scar tissue. When you're dealing with it, essentially you have some options, okay? If you have scar tissue, one of the things you can do is enter into a process where you nurse it back to health, in order to help the area become something that, you can use again and use it the way you were made to use it. So you can nurse that back to health. Or you can just, what I would call, live limited. You'd say, well, it is what it is. I don't really want to go through that process. I will just gingerly work around the damage. Or I suppose if you're that annoyed or if there's that much pain, you just cut that body part off, I suppose. You could do that. That would be an option if you really feel like you're better off without it. And lately, we've kind of circling around this idea of exploring how we can use our relationships in a way where God can show off what he can do in other people. We've been talking about who can we include, where can we invest, who can we invite in order to give God more and more stage in our lives for God to do incredible things in other people's lives. So today, we are going to talk about rehabilitation in relationships. Your relationships. Have you noticed a relationship in your life that does not work the way it used to? You remember when it was way more flexible. And now it's just really tense, it's really tight, there's a lot of tension. Could be for unspoken reasons. What used to feel open and easy, now when you try to use it, feels awkward, maybe highly uncomfortable. Why is that? Maybe it goes back to an injury. Something wrong happened. Maybe it was sudden. Maybe it was a subtle trickle of similar offenses. But overall, chances are good that the friendship was damaged. Time just kept passing. And now, on the surface, how's it look? May look fine, but only because everything is being held together by relational scar tissue. And just like with physical healing, with this relationship, you've got some options. You could cut it off, right? You could give up. Say it's not worth the trouble. Nothing good can come from this further. And I would say sometimes this is necessary. I would also say this. More often than it being necessary, we have lots of people in our world, lots of people in our churches who live jumping from relationship to relationship because they continue the cut it off method. Their network is getting smaller and smaller and smaller as they live. You could cut it off. You could live limited. In other words, there may be some, even a lot of relationships for you where you just keep things civil, you avoid the deep stuff, or third option, you could focus on that relationship and find some ways to nurse it back to health. And anybody who has been through rehab will tell you, rehab is a grind. You know, specialists might come and stick his fingers in, and you're like, ow! And they make you do things that you don't want to do, and you're trying to test it and trying to see what's possible, and we don't know how long this will go for. So why would I do that? If I have a relationship that has been injured, why would you suggest that I try to nurse it back to health? I'll tell you why, because I know I'm talking to a lot of Jesus people. Is because we serve a God who says, I do exceedingly and abundantly more than you could ever hope for or imagine. That we are a God who demonstrates his creation of relationship, his blessing of relationship. Luke 18 says, the things which are impossible with men, and there are things that are impossible with men, right? There are things that are impossible with men that are possible with God. And some of the most show-stopping stories of changed hearts in our world, of changed lives in our world, are deeply rooted in a relationship that most people would have just thrown away. Most people would have just sent it down the river. They would have written it off. And if you're anything like me, you've got some relationships that you've been wondering about. I want to call you to see through the eyes of faith, see it through God's eyes, what God may want to bring back to life. We serve a God that doesn't just take broken things and fix them. We serve a God that brings dead things to life. And what I'd like to do this morning is just really, again, because we're in a season of thinking, who can we include? Where can we invest? Who could we invite? This is a broadening idea. I want to cast some vision. What if Christians were known for believing that even in their relationships, in the most unlikely places, healing is possible. It can be experienced. And that relationships are worth rescuing, and that people are worth the grace even through the pain. So, today we're going to talk about how to restart and rehab a relationship. We always learn from God's word. So open up a Bible if you would like to follow along with me. Psalm 51, basically the neighborhood of just dropping it right up into the middle. Psalm 51, we'll also have it on the screen today, but I love it. I love it when you study it for yourself. That's something that you can just take home with you. And where we're dropping in is a place where we're going to hear this through the mouth of a guy named David. And we've got a lot of Bible. We have a lot of Bible where the life of David is constantly pointing us in the right direction. This is not one of those times. He's normally a man after God's own heart. But this is a time in his life where he has just committed a devastating chain of sins that basically ended with him arranging the death of a friend, successfully arranging the death of a friend in order to cover up the whole mess that he had made. Now, I realize the territory we're getting into, you've probably already murmured yourself, yeah, Justin, but you don't know what I did. Or, Justin, you don't know what they did to me. Okay, I get that. But David would say, yeah, dude, this was not just me falling off the wagon, right? Okay, I stole the wagon and ran it off a cliff with it on fire. Like, this is how bad it got in David's life. And where we are, Psalm 51 is David's raw, honest, it's a worship song, honestly. In a time when he had been confronted, David had come to his senses. And in the wake of the devastation that he had created, he dared to hope that healing could happen. So this is what we're going to read as a prayer for restoration. And what I would like to do is I would like to just read this straight through, because I think that if we do, we will feel the tension. We'll feel the discomfort. And I think we'll be able to relate to it. So let's do this your best way. Read along with me, or just let your eyes on the screen, or just shut your eyes and just listen to my voice. I'll just start at verse 1. He says, "Have mercy on me, O God, because of your unfailing love. Because of your great compassion, blot out the stain of my sins. Wash me clean from my guilt. Purify me from my sin. For I recognize my rebellion. It haunts me day and night. Against you and you alone have I sinned. I've done what is evil in your sight, and you will be proved right in what you say, and your judgment against me is just. For I was born a sinner. Yes, from the moment my mother conceived me. But you desire honesty from the womb, teaching me wisdom even there. Purify me from my sins, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Oh, give me back my joy again. You've broken me. Now let me rejoice. Don't keep looking at my sins, but remove the stain of my guilt. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a loyal spirit within me. Don't banish me from your presence. Don't take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation and make me willing to obey you. And then I will teach your ways to rebels, and they will return to you. Forgive me for shedding blood, O God who saves. And then I will joyfully sing of your forgiveness. Unseal my lips, O Lord, that my mouth may praise you. You do not desire a sacrifice, or I would offer one. You do not want a burnt offering. The sacrifice you desire is a broken spirit. You will not reject a broken and repentant heart, O God. Look with favor on Zion and help her rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, and then you will be pleased with sacrifices offered in the right spirit, with burnt offerings and whole burnt offerings, and then bulls will again be sacrificed on your altar. Definitely some cultural language that we will be able to address today. But essentially, when we know the story and we get the context, what do you think David is saying here? David is saying, God, I don't want to take another step in life without getting back the relationship with you that I used to have. Please don't cut yourself off from me. I do not cut myself off from you. And I don't want to limp along pretending this is as good as it gets. And so what David does here is he does a few things right in order to experience reconciliation with God. I believe that these are completely transferable ideas to our reconciliation efforts with other people. A relationship is a relationship. And so as we look at this, we realize there are some things that we can do right. Ownership, confession, apology. These are some of the best right things we can do after we've done a lot of things wrong. And so I'm going to make a little list here, and we're going to pull all of these out of Scripture. It's a list of 5. If you're a type A, tell me how to make room for all my notes kind of person. And we'll just call it the rules of reconciliation. And I just want to say ahead of time, if there's somebody in your life, we'll come back to this at the end, but if somebody in your life is moving in this effort, please don't judge them because they missed number 2 and number 4. Like it's not the rules of reconciliation, but these are absolutely great guideposts on what it means to rehab a relationship. So here's the first one right here. First rule of reconciliation is to have the faith to lean in. Can't keep moving forward if we don't have the faith to lean in. Both sides of a squabble feel the urge to withdraw after a fallout, don't they? Both sides. When I'm the person who feels like I'm owed an apology and I'm not getting one, the tendency is I go cold on that person, or I starve that person out of my attention or my affection. When I'm the person who sinned, who screwed up, I have a tendency to go cold as well. Why? Because it's hard to keep living around that person, feeling the weight of my shame and my guilt and their condemnation because I hurt them. So the tendency is both feel the urge to withdraw. However, leaning away from each other, that's the opposite of what it's going to take to bring us back together. We have to have the faith to lean in. I want to draw you to David's words here, just in verses 1 and 2, where he says, "Have mercy on me, O God, because of your unfailing love. Because of your great compassion, blot out the stain of my sins." See, people never return to relationships in which they believe all the love has already been used up. There's no more grace because of what you did, what you said, because of what we keep coming back to. And the sad part is there are no long-term relationships without forgiveness. None. Because we're all human. So when I say have the faith to lean in, it's not necessarily faith in that person. See, we're in this to see what faith can do, what God can do. And what we see in these verses is that there is a such thing as unfailing love. God's unfailing love and his compassion, I'm telling you today, are the baseline for all human forgiveness and healing. We move forward because we know that God says people are worth it. If he has unfailing compassion and love for me, he has it for other people too. That is the baseline for how we lean in and start to come back together. We can always bet on that. And when we find ourselves betting on things, we know the Bible word for that. That's called faith. It's called faith. So you have to have the faith to lean in. Rule number 2. Confess your wrongs and apologize. Like if you truly want to regain somebody's heart after you've sinned against him or you've sinned against her, you have broken trust, you gotta say what you did. And it helps to hear how you feel about that now. But it starts with identify it. Say what you did. David does this. Did you notice that? Look at verse 3. Look at verse 4. He said to God, I recognize my rebellion. It haunts me day and night. I recognize it. Okay, I see it. I see it. He says, against you and you alone have I sinned, which that's just always true for all incidents of human sin, is that whether I've sinned against one of you or 101 of you, the ultimate person I've sinned against is God, because God made my life to reflect his, and he made all of you. And so he's the first person I have to report to. This is another sign that David is being clear-headed. Against you and you, this is where I got to start. Against you and you alone have I sinned. I have done what is evil in your sight. I may have broken our rules. I broke your rules. That's bad. That's where it's at. You will be proved right in what you say. Your judgment against me is just. In other words, your verdict will always stand. This is the moment on the nature hike when you finally stop rationalizing your discomfort and you stop, you take off your backpack and you sit on the big rock and then you untie your hiking boot, and God knows how long it took you to tie that thing, but you untie that whole thing and you pull that boot off and then you start feeling the sock and running your fingers and you find it. that little pebble, that little rock, that little piece of straw that's been jabbing your ankle for the last mile and a half. There you are. It was you. that identification process is very much like when there's been an injury in a relationship, and we go, here it is. Look, I get it. This is what I said. This is the tone I took. This is where I defaulted. This is what I forgot. My actions were out of bounds. I should not have spent that. I shouldn't have gone there. I dropped the ball. I let you down. I made things difficult between us when I did this. It's called owning your stuff. And the best way to own your stuff always begins with words. You acknowledge the wrongdoing. Got to put it into words. It helps to know how you feel about it. Did you notice that David said, I recognize my wrong and it haunts me? And it's a helpful thing to hear from somebody. Hey, man, I'm still embarrassed when I think about this. I know this is not my shining moment. I haven't slept. Or even just the classic line, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but here it is. Relationships can't function without trust. And we can't trust if we're on two different pages. So the pain will persist if one person says, this is what you did, and the other person says, you're crazy. Or one person says, here's what I did, and it's fine, and the other person says, you're crazy. But when two people say, one person says, here's what you did, and it was bad, and the other person says, here's what I did, and it was bad, what happens? Well, now we're on the same page. And this is the precise place where trust can begin again, and now we're starting to get some blood into the site of the injury. So we have to confess the wrong and apologize. Number three, be disarmingly honest. Be disarmingly honest. As a kid growing up in my house, a lot of kids where I grew up, short span of age, 6 kids in 6 years. I'm 5. I'm very much the runt of the litter. 5 boys. I'm the youngest, and then they have the girl. So I ain't winning that one, So I would say I did a lot of things to get by. And I'm saying I'm blessed, a great family, love all those people today. But you can imagine being boy number 5 and 5, there were a lot of kerfuffles. And it was always somebody, and then Justin. And then I would get called an account. And let's just say that my recollection of events in that moment was usually quite imaginative. How about that? Can we just say it that way? I was very creative about creating escapes, for myself. And then when push came to shove and the screws down tight, I would just lie my face off. That was really me growing up. And I would say after the first 10 or 13 years of my life, I could testify to you, I have learned the hard way that because of all that lying and imagination, there are no shortcuts to earning people's trust, which means you can't take any shortcuts when it comes to honesty. And you got to know that because we're always so tempted to arrange things to be more convenient for our emotions, more convenient for our future. I would call them shortcuts. We have the shortcut of blame shifting. In a conversation like this, you can start to proceed, but then you blame shift, which means, well, I did this, but you did this, and I would have done this if you hadn't done that. There's not a healthy future beyond that. Or we use our emotions in order to distract from the point. We be dramatic or whatever it is, and we do things that aren't helping aid healing in the precise location. We exaggerate, we minimize, we hide details. Why? Because we have this instinct to save face. These are all easy ways out. They do not help the healing, they only help your ego. And in a day and age where you can airbrush anything, and there are so many filters you can apply to beautify things, let's be people who are disarmingly honest. We reject that and we own it to a point where people can tell, I'm giving you everything that I've got. We see this in David in his prayer too. Look at verse 5 and look at verse 6. Did you notice how David says, for I was born a sinner? Yes, from the moment my mother conceived me. Maybe how you say this is, Hey, look, here it is. And unfortunately, I do things like this. I'm embarrassed to say I chose that. I chose that. I completely disregarded you, and I chose that. This has been a weak area for me. This is an area of struggle. Unfortunately, I have a history of this kind of behavior. That's essentially what David is expressing to God. He says, but you desire honesty from the womb, teaching me wisdom even there. You know what I believe David is telling God here is that he understands an incredibly basic expectation in a relationship is simple, bald-faced honesty. We cannot move forward together through fantasy. Only reality. So if you screwed up and you want to make a pitch for somebody's heart to get back in the game, here's my advice. Be disarmingly honest. If you want to make a pitch for their heart, treat it like a sales pitch. In other words, prepare your best 12 to 20 words. Prepare it like I prepare a message for you guys. Write down everything you think you could say about it and then chisel it down. Conciseness is the essence of genius. 12 to 20 words. Own it, express your heart, speak directly to the heart of the matter, and then let there be silence. Let them receive it. Being as honest as possible is critical in order to help getting the health flowing again. And just one more thought about this. I think there are times when we are on the receiving end of apology and we want to stop them and say, stop. Are you justifying or excusing what you did because you're telling me why you did what you did? And I don't think that's always them rationalizing their behavior. I think sometimes they're just trying to be as vulnerable and as honest as possible by letting you know what they were thinking and what they were feeling when they did what they did. But as long as we still agree that the outcomes were hurtful and maybe sinful, it's okay to receive the story. This is what it means to be disarmingly honest. Okay? Tell them something that they could never yank out of you. And you will express, what I really want is for us to move forward and trust. Okay? I told you we got 5, we're on 4. The fourth one is this: be absolutely willing. Be absolutely willing. You know, I say this because of what we see in verses 16 and 17 here. David tells God, hey, I know you do not desire a sacrifice, or I would offer one. You do not want a burnt offering. The sacrifice you desire is a broken spirit, and you will not reject a broken and repentant heart, O God. In David's day and age, the, let's say, relationally public sign that he was all broken up about what he had done would be to go down to the tabernacle, and he would offer a religious sacrifice of a lamb or a bull, all part of a system that God had set up. That when you sin against me, it costs you your life. And as a favor, out of grace, I won't take your lifeblood. I'll take the lifeblood of the sacrifice that you bring so that you and I both are agreed about the seriousness of what you've done, but also so that we can have move forward together. So in David's day and age, maybe you bring a lamb or a bull. For us, I don't know, what do we bring? Flowers? Jewelry? Sugary, tall, frothy drink from Starbucks or something like that. This is the whole let me make it up to you thing. David is cool with that. He just also knows that none of that works if behind it is a heart that's still proud, right? Real healing starts for others when we let go of control. This is what I mean by be absolutely willing. Should I attempt to return what I stole? Yeah, you should. Should I attempt to fix what I broke? Yeah, absolutely. Would it be okay for me to make a gesture to express how I really feel? Yes, but also don't push, don't rush, don't script the outcome, because that could be taken as a sign that you are trying to control how they ought to feel about you. Remember, scar tissue, it's such a deceptive thing, isn't it? I don't see why we can't move forward. There's no room for pride here. The ball has to be in their court. We need to demonstrate absolute willingness. And you know that willingness has begun in your own heart when you are letting them to decide when and even if they're going to be ready to move forward with you. That's what humility looks like. And that's how trust begins to regrow in an area where it wasn't. Number 5, fifth and final. Plan to get moving again. Every rehabilitation story has always been aimed at this. This strategy has always been not just about coming to terms with what happened, the injury, the break. It's not focused solely on the pain, but also the strategy always is supposed to culminate in reintroducing movement and use as soon as possible. People tend to give up on relationships if they don't have a sense that this relationship can go anywhere from here. And here's what I would just like to point out about David. David is clearly not just seeking to recapture a feeling, he's seeking to recapture a future. Let me show you. Look at verse 13. He says, then I will teach your ways to rebels, and they will return to you. David is already offering his personal recovery journey from being a dastardly screw-up. He's like, I would like this to be a roadmap for other screw-ups who will need forgiveness and grace as I have needed it. He says, I think it's verse 15, he says, unseal my lips, O Lord, that my mouth may praise you. This is a guy who's on hold, he's let go of control, and he's waiting for the nod so that he can proclaim that he has been restored by God's mercy and that God's mercy is stronger than his worst offenses. He says, look favor on Zion. This Zion is the poetic term for David's kingdom, Jerusalem, their land, the people that he loves. Look with favor on Zion. Help her rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. See, David understands that his sin is going to send unimaginable ripples throughout his kingdom, throughout his domain. And you and I got to know that about sin too. That sin is just always pregnant with more destruction and decay and death. That's the nature of sin. We cannot calculate how far those ripples go, even in the actions that you and I would like to call micro offenses, because sin is just like that. David's aware, but David is also aware that this is the God that we read in his word. He says love covers over a multitude of sins. And don't misunderstand, not covers over like, let's pretend it never happened. Love covers over a multitude of sins, meaning that God's love is deep enough to flood out those sins with grace and keep them from having an ongoing significance. David is saying, I know my sin is going to send some, if not a million ripples, but I'm asking you to run ahead of those ripples. Give our people a story of blessing without having to erase our history of failures, my history of failures. See, David has a plan to get moving again. And if you're the apologizer, you might think it's a little presumptuous for you to sit down with somebody and ask for a second chance. But let me just ask the people in the room who have dealt with scar tissue, like physical scar tissue. What is the number one thing your rehab therapist told you on the road to healing? He or she said, as soon as you can, let's get that thing moving again. As soon as it's safe. Gently we add weight. Gently we add pressure. Gently we expand the range of motion. And we always hang on to the dream of full recovery. Will we get it? Not going to find out. Not going to find out until we enter into the process. And so for you and me in a relationship, simple admissions like, could we try being friends again? Or would you forgive me? Or can I have some chances to earn back your trust on this? That is an invitation that says, humbly, I'm in to add some weight on this relationship and see what it can carry. See where it can actually go. And as we wrap up these ideas this morning and the ball gets put squarely in your court, I want to acknowledge that these are really brave steps to take. Relationships are not for the faint-hearted. Coming to terms with an injury that you still shudder to think about, courage it takes to try again, and to make an invitation toward gently applied weight and start testing motion. The commitment to staying connected after we've behaved like we'd rather be separate. They're brave steps, but I'm not saying that all people in the world can't try these things, but you and I process our lives through the lens of what Jesus says, right? And what Jesus is teaching us. We stand on his promises. What he says is the assurance of our heart in order to be brave. And Jesus' people stand on this. We will never know what God might heal if we don't ask and we don't try. I would like to see us be the brave ones, because he does bring dead things to life. He doesn't want to see ailing relationships. He wants to see healthier relationships. And he's always teaching us that people are worth the grace, even through the pain. So in a moment, we're going to pray. I want to remind you about your Connect card. Mike made a mention of this, and you may have some things you may need to write down today. So how we can pray for you as you take some brave steps. Some next steps that you may want to take today. So have that in your lap, and I'm just going to add one final thought. Is that the beauty of learning how to apologize well after you've screwed up, and added beauty to that is it can be humbling if not humiliating, and it puts in our hearts an empathy, a sympathy for the moment when somebody needs to apologize to us. And maybe today you might be the person that imminently, one day you may need to apologize, but right now you're the person waiting for an apology. You might be a person who's going to be asked for forgiveness. And when somebody is attempting to humble themselves before you, I just want to encourage you, don't rush past it. Don't stiff arm it. Don't punish it. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is simply to say, wow, thank you. Let's see where this can go from here. But I'm going to dare you. Do your very best to get behind what they're doing right today. Find a way to let grace return the flow of love and healing in a relationship that we were just tempted to cut off. Because in any spot in our lives where forgiveness flows freely, scar tissue does not stand a chance. Father, we come to you. You are the giver of all grace. There is no grace that is meaningful that we have to give that did not come from you. All of our love's roots in your love. You started all this up. We come to you with broken and painful parts. And left alone, we would be islands apart from each other because of some of the things that have happened to us. Things that happened in relationship A are still affecting relationships H and P and Q. And you see down to the depths of us, and you make it okay for us to acknowledge the brokenness, as well as you make it okay for us to acknowledge ourselves as the breaker. And I'm asking for your help for all of us, Father, what we're being led to do by your heart is to believe in the things that you could bring to life, and that the relationships that we have are not accidents. You call us to steward our lives, our hearts, our relationships prudently. And I know that in the aftermath of some sins, that there is a stopping point for many of us. Give us the grace to know where that truly is. But Father, I pray that you keep our ears and our hearts alive to your whisper. If you are calling us to lead a reconciliation effort, if you are calling us to add grace where grace was not requested, because we just want to be the people who believe what you say and we act on it. Pray for courage in this room. Pray for our relationships. Father, I pray that we would stop acting as if it is them and me and nobody else. God, you are in the mix. And we have you to believe in even when we can't believe in ourselves, and we certainly can't believe in another person. We have you. So show us how to have a faith that kicks into gear in these particular points, the points that are most ignorable, that we would easily avoid. This is the place we are asking to watch you work. And it's your show. It's your show. We follow your lead. We will not rush you. You are the healer. You are the leader. And I know you're doing something in them just like you're doing something in me. We're on your timetable. But God, we want to be the ones in the front row when hearts are changed and lives are changed and relationships are restored. And while our hearts are open before you, it's not hard for me to believe that in all this talk about our horizontal relationships, that we've got some folks in this room that feels like our vertical relationship with you is beyond repair. And I know you're giving us hope to rethink that. Because of all the evil that was done in the world, you sent your one and only Son, Jesus, to address that evil with his perfectly lived life, sacrificed for all of us. You made a way so that we could be forgiven and a relationship could be restored with you. That's the most unlikely relationship to ever believe could be restored, is a relationship with our perfect Creator. And you did it through Jesus. And if that's you today, folk, I want you to trust Jesus enough that he didn't come for nothing. He came to pave the way with his own life so that you could be forgiven, that your joy could be restored, that you could have a new heart created in you. And what you would say is, God, I believe I am the sinner between the two of us. I am the one that has hurt your heart, broken your laws, lived as if I was better off without you. And today I'm saying, no, I need you. I need this relationship. And I'm asking you to forgive me, not because I've done anything great to be forgiven, but because you sent your Son, Jesus, so that my sins could be paid for. Your love can drown out my history of sin, and you can make me clean and whole. I receive that as a gift today, just as you've offered it, just as you've offered it. I want to belong to you through Jesus. I receive that today. I trust that you will lead me in this new life that you give me. I want to depend on you all the way till I get home to you. Thank you that I don't have to be afraid of facing you one day, because you're a forgiver. And you have shown how much you want this relationship. I trust you. Jesus, it's in your mighty name we pray with expectancy.